Thought I'd make a quick video on my Harbor Freight utility trailer build for an ATV. I got some inspiration from this from a channel, I think it's Life with the Hummels, possibly, and did a lot of things from their build, but there are some dissimilarities that I felt like worked better for me. And I got this trailer used. It had never been used though. The guy bought it a few years back, meant to title it, never even got it put together fully, so I paid about $200 for it, which is about half of what they cost now, but about what they cost a few years ago. So I think I did okay there. I finished putting the trailer together, went out and got some treated lumber, and I did do the measurements for the most part from that Life with the Hummels video. These boards are 54.5 inches. These are 38.25. I believe they're 38.25. These are 27 inches long. I would say though, depending on your height, you might consider going a little shorter. I'm 6'2", and to be honest, this is getting close to as high as it needs to be, particularly if you're trying to lift a large round and just dump it over the side into the trailer. Now you could always walk to the back and that's a lot lower height back there at the tail, obviously, but that's not always the most convenient thing when you're tripping around in the woods. I did add these metal brackets up here up top to strengthen it up. Of course, I've got screws in the end, and then this in the bottom. I just didn't find the need to pay for the extra hardware. One per is fine, particularly since up here it's being held with two, and that's on each side. Added these brackets and came from a hardware store. I believe they're like gate latches or something of that nature, but I just looked at them and thought, well, that would be perfect to haul tools around. And you can do that. Rakes, etc., holds fairly well. Depending on the thickness of your tool, you might have to wrap something around there to keep them pinched in there a little bit better, but for the most part, I've had okay success with that. On the gate, I did a different latching mechanism from the video with Life with the Hummels. I wasn't satisfied with how snug that gate was, so put a couple pieces of angle iron in the corner to serve as a stop, and then again from the hardware store, just these little latches that you can screw and unscrew by hand, and of course you can get it as tight as you have the strength to do, and also being able to get it undone. It does pretty well. It can vibrate loose if you're on real rough terrain. Won't come completely loose, but it can vibrate some of the tension off and the gate will start rattling. It gets your attention and you can tighten it back up again, but that seems to work okay. Of course, I can unscrew them completely and remove the gate. I just took a lag bolt like in the video with Life with the Hummels. It's screwed in the bottom of this, so it's like a peg. And I just cut the end of the lag bolt off, so it's just a post. Drilled a hole into the boards on the back, and it goes straight through there. One thing to note, there is a horizontal piece that goes over the tailstock here, goes underneath all the way. So that post is penetrating both of these and actually sticks out just a little from this bottom board. I just wanted as much purchase at the bottom as I could get. On the other side, did a similar thing. I've got a logging chain on here wrapped around, and my shovel's in here at the moment. I also found this in the hardware section. I thought, well, that'd be perfect to hold my axes in particular. So this larger one, that's about 4 or 5 inches or so. Anyways, it'll hold this Fiskars axe. And this is just a 27-inch handle, just regular axe, not a splitting axe, just a regular axe. But I would think any Fiskars axe would work because the handles are basically the same. Then I got a smaller one to hold the hatchet. I keep wedges in the back of the ATV. I use carriage bolts in several locations, like here, to hold on these angle iron pieces. Also, for the chainsaw, holders. You know, you got your posts here in the front, and I intended to carry a large saw and a smaller saw, and so this will work for, you know, anything running 325 chain. This is obviously for the big saws running 3/8 chain. I don't know about 404. I haven't tested that, but if the chain's any bigger, it might be a little bit snug. But the way I accomplish this standoff is with little nylon spacers. Of course, these are carriage bolts. If I ever wear the spacers out from the teeth going in and out, of course, obviously you don't want to put metal spacers in there and have your chain nick that thing on the way in and the way out every time. So that's why I went with nylon. Left just a little slack so that they roll. If the chain hits, they'll roll, to maybe minimize damage to the spacers themselves, but not much space, just enough that they'll turn. And here I did a little brass insert, and this screws into the bar. Obviously the orientation that you choose for your saw matters here, so I make sure that the saw blade is back. So in other words, clutch side. Now you could really, in theory, twist these things either way, but it makes the most sense with this setup to go clutch side, and that way you can screw these in, pin the bar flat against these two boards, or three in the case of this saw. This saw has a 24-inch bar on it. This will accommodate a 3-foot bar, but the 3 feet sticking out a few inches at the bottom, obviously. But like this 24-inch bar, I can't feel the end. So 28 might come to the end, 32 is gonna stick out a little, and 36 a little bit more. But you know, depending on your terrain, that might be okay. But generally, since I thought I would be running a 24 or 28, this made a lot of sense. And I may have to go back and do this better at some point, but I'm just gonna undo this chainsaw to show you what I had to do up top, because you know your saw has dogs and they dig in just a little, as you can see by some of the damage in the wood. So I just had some spare diamond plate aluminum because I didn't want to dull the dogs, and I figured that the aluminum would give a little, and obviously it has. That working back and forth is just from the vibration of the trailer moving back and forth. I think that's going to be very hard to avoid. So may have to replace it at some point. There may be a better solution, I don't know, but this is what I did for now, just to save the wood, a wood saver. And if you're running double dogs, a saw with double dogs like this 500, then you need a plate. If you can see that, you need a plate on both sides. I dropped the phone, but you can see the spacers there. Also put some rock straps on here I was experimenting with holding the head a little steadier. But honestly, once I put this in, it's good enough. I mean, it moves. The dogs dig into the wood a little, and so that holds it pretty steady. Depending on your saw and how flexible the mounts are, it may move more or less. But obviously, when you're hauling things like this, you may end up with a full load of wood or something like that. You're probably not going to be bouncing up and down the trail as hard as you can. I chose to go with that gate locking mechanism because a lot of the terrain I'm on is fairly steep. It's also very rocky, and you know, if you've got it full of wood or anything that might roll around or bounce, if you don't have that snug at the back, any kind of looseness, and you'll end up breaking that gate. So I figured that was a good way to keep everything inside and make it function a little more correctly. And as far as the deck goes, if you never find that other video, Life of the Hummels, they do the build video, so it'd be worth watching. I've got 1x stuff underneath in 2 sections, and the floorboard is screwed into that, and it just pulled the 1x snug against the frame. I gotta be honest, I personally haven't found a need to actually carriage bolt the frame down, because once you have all these things installed, you can see it's butted up against that. On this side, it's butted up there on the left and right. The only thing that I did was ever so often, well, I think I just did 1 per post. So this is a screw, a 3-inch screw straight through there into that board. So that's on these 4 posts. No matter what I've hauled in here, that thing ain't budged a millimeter. So I think that's sufficient. Between the snugness of the screws pulling the 1x up tight against the frame, it being butted on 3 sides here, and then just having a screw in each of these 4 posts, I've found to be sufficient and save you a little money on hardware. I can't necessarily say this was, inexpensive or an inexpensive build. This hardware costs money, carriers of bolts cost money these days. So any of this stuff you see costs a little bit of money, even if it was a few cents at a time. It starts adding up by the time you buy all these pieces. I'm not exactly sure how much I spent, and it would, depend on your market and, what your hardware store stocks and how cheap they get it and what they're pricing it for. A lot of variables there. But I would feel comfortable saying, if you get the trailer for a good deal, like I got this for $200, I feel pretty confident saying between the lumber and the hardware, which honestly the hardware adds up if we're being honest. I already had screws for a different, another project, so I didn't have to buy any more screws. But if you had to buy that, there's a cost there. And, there's quite a few screws in here, at least 2 per section, right, on every post all the way around. And then in the floor too, it's across, 2 per all the way across. So, it's not inexpensive. So I keep that in mind. But I would say $400 to $450 is probably what I have in this, besides my time. Which the time wasn't a tremendous amount. If you do the measurements, 54.5, 38 and a quarter, I believe it was 38 and a quarter. And I did 27 inches on these. I don't remember what the measurement was in between the well. You'll have to get that measurement to get something that'll work. Then, obviously it's not very hard to put together. This is only about 2 feet, I think, instead of 27, since this was bolted, the carriage bolted into the frame. So a little bit shorter. The angle iron is something I did after the fact, but we just had spare pieces laying around. Yeah, it's not real difficult to kind of come up with how you'd like to modify it to fit what your needs are. I personally haven't found a need to add any kind of storage for like gas and oil for the saws. Because to be honest with you, that doesn't get very good gas mileage, but it runs like you stole it. And I can cut a lot of wood in a tank of gas, a lot of wood. And then I can cut a heck of a lot of wood with this thing because it absolutely just sips the gas. So by the time I've cut that much wood up, number one, I've got a trailer load, 100% easy. And I'm going to have to haul some of it out anyways. And I'll just go back and get some gas. And either way, I'll be due for a break or something to eat by that point probably. So, and if I may do it in the future, I don't know. I kind of doubt it right now. If I thought I needed gas and oil, to be honest with you, I would just put it in the trailer and leave a little space in the trailer to haul it back, on top of the stuff you put in there. I don't know, but everybody's different. Everybody's got what they want or fits their needs a little bit better. This fit my needs fairly well. And just to show you how that hatchet's in there. Now the space I had available kind of determined some of the things that I did, right, in terms of which pieces I installed on there. The nice thing about this is, depending on your hardware, it's got a little bit of positive pressure, which is nice. I didn't put the fender flares on. Obviously, that's completely unnecessary for what I'm using this for. I also didn't install the lights because, again, it's completely unnecessary. I would like to convert that to a 2-inch instead of 1 7/8. That's, specific to this Harbor Freight trailer. And I may do that at some point, but yeah, for the most part, this thing has already paid for itself. If we're being honest, it's done a really good job so far. I haven't had to fix anything, and my terrain is, like I said, super rocky in a lot of places, super steep, and I have absolutely loaded this little trailer to the top of the boards, front to back, with red oak or white oak, with absolutely no problems. Pine for sure isn't a problem, but yeah, even loading it that heavy with green oak, no problem with the trailer itself. You just have to make sure you have the machine that can pull that kind of weight. I'm not sure what that weighs, but yeah, I can definitely tell it's back there. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer them. But thanks for your time.